You know, when you speak, it's so hopeful listening to you. You have all of us enthused, and in fact, Chandra and I were just discussing our next collaboration with you. so we're looking forward to that. You know, these are exciting times. India has experienced unprecedented change, especially in the tech space. We are sitting in Bangalore today, and the backdrop is the Karnataka elections. And before you, we had a bunch of startup founders talking about what does India's Silicon Valley want. And while I was listening to them, I was wondering, why is it that the tech capital of the country and one of the largest tech capitals in the world, it has not been able to come up with a solution to beat the voter apathy of Bangalore, to derive solutions to Bangalore's problems that really sound like a broken record, because these are the same issues we've been discussing election after election.
So maybe we'll just ask ChatGPT that question, and maybe that will throw up the answer. I certainly don't know the answer. And for those in the audience who know me from my work in Bengaluru, you know that I have tried several years, all the way from 2008, spending a lot of my personal capital and money and, personal political equity in trying and getting people to come and turn out for the municipal elections, the Bbmp elections, which are really the most important elections if you're a resident of a city, and the state elections. And while the turnout for the national elections have certainly increased, and there is considerable participation and enthusiasm, it is one of those abiding mysteries on why people just don't want to show up for the assembly election and the local body elections. And there is an inversion which is true, which is that the more important the election is to your personal life and community and neighborhood, the less the participation is. So you have, for example, the Bbmp election where the percentages are 36, 37%. Then the state election, it goes to 48%, and the national election goes to the 60s. So it's a question that I certainly don't have an answer for. I've made my effort this time again to try and enthuse voters, especially the intellectually, more, let's say, aware and sophisticated amongst all of you, to come out and vote. And I certainly hope you will. I certainly think you should. And, for those who worry about Bengaluru and care about the future of the city, I certainly think that the least you can do is come out and vote on voting day.
So, there is broad consensus that Karnataka has its issues, Bangalore has its issues. Yet the narrative from the BJP has completely turned. It's become a narrative centered around identity. It's become an emotive issue. The Congress has also followed suit. Why is it that Karnataka is not discussing the issues that matter? Why is your party not talking about the Bbmp election that happened last in 2020? It's not taking up the cause of the infrastructure mess that Bangalore specifically is in. Why is it that we're subverting these important issues?
Look, I would hesitate to call it subversion, and I know it makes for great copy and stuff like that, but we are actually running an absolutely crystal clear campaign, and all the way to the day of our manifesto, we were talking about 3.5 years of performance, our record, how the double-engine government will give 5 more years of development to Karnataka and Bengaluru. We specifically, in the context of Bengaluru, laid out our vision for the state capital region. And things were going fine, and we were prepared to deal with all of the lies and allegations that were being thrown at us, and we were planning to deal with it with the truth. But when a political party starts playing fuzzy football and starts, I can deal with lies and we can deal with lies. When they start bringing in appeasement, when they start deliberately talking about giving reservations to one particular community where we have nothing against the community, but clearly designed to be a very different type of a political discourse, we have a problem with that. And we have a problem with that when you start pandering to the worst of the worst elements, and your manifesto then becomes that, then it is our duty to sit up and protest and oppose that. And we are very clear about ourselves as a political party. We believe in the politics of sabka saath, sabka vishwas, sabka vikas. Nothing that the Prime Minister, no scheme of the Prime Minister, nothing that our government in Karnataka has ever done, has ever discriminated, has ever appeased anybody or left out anybody. So we have this problem when people say we will do things and we will promise things that are ultra vires the constitutions. And so therefore we will speak out, and we will speak out loud. Now, whether it becomes identity politics as a consequence and who started it, I suspect you don't want to get into that debate of who started it. But this is legitimate political discourse when a party that is increasingly losing sight of what people want and what the discourse should be, and instead of placing any one idea on development of Bengaluru, makes banning of an organization the principal pillar on which his manifesto rests, then we will wake up and say, look, that's not on.
So, we're talking about reservation politics. We're also talking about freebie politics. Both parties have put out manifestos where both Congress and the BJP are offering a slew of freebies. Now, that's not progressive politics, right? And when the BJP says that they stand for development, they stand for progressive politics, but the manifestos are contrary to that.
No, again, I don't know which manifesto was you read, but certainly our manifesto doesn't compare at all with what the Congress has done. We have not done any freebie politics. Ours is not a party, nor is our government vested on the idea that we will give things to people in return for their votes. We have a development vision. Our Prime Minister says that we have lost so much of time in the last 60, 65 years that we must accelerate development. We must really make this double-engine Sarkara be a narrative, not just about one party and the same party being in two places, but the two governments working together to accelerate development, investment, job creations. That is what our narrative is. Now, if you contrast that with parties, and I have said this publicly, it's a very lazy kind of politics that we saw first in Gujarat, and then I took on that type of Revdi politics, which is in the absence of any other narrative. All you say is, I'll give you this amount of money, I'll give you that amount of money. Look, this is inspired by some parties in the regional party setup like DMK, etc., etc. But certainly it's not something that people want, because people are today looking for a better future. They are looking for a better future for their children. They are looking for better infrastructure. So they are not looking for handouts. That politics of handouts, that politics of, in a sense, buying your vote by giving you some crumbs, is a politics of the 70s. And this party, unfortunately, the party that we are really talking about, hasn't made the transition into a politics of aspiration. And our politics, our vision is really about creating more and more opportunities for the young Indian, building an enabling ecosystem of skills, of education, of fine institutions, of infrastructure, roads, railway stations, new trains, new airports. We believe that the investment of public capital should go there to create a better future for these youngsters and the families that with whom they live. Now, if there is a group of political parties that insist that they will continue the same Garibi Hatao, the sort of a empty promise, and then give out some handouts and perpetuate the poverty, perpetuate the status quo of their lives, then we are certainly not that kind of a party. We are a party that says we want to change your life and we want to take you into a better future.
So you represent the state of Karnataka in the Rajya Sabha. You are a technocrat. You built a business in the state. You're one of the most successful entrepreneurs. We had entrepreneurs on the stage talk about the challenges that they face. And I'll quote one of them who said that there are 225 filings that are required every year to set up and run a business in an SEZ. So, while we are talking about building a nurturing ecosystem for startups, we talk about India's startup story, but when you hear them, while there has been, a lot of push from the government, but yet there are challenges on the ground. Is there something that you would like to say today to the
No, look, I will maintain what I had a program some 3 hours ago with a group of manufacturing MSMEs. And I said here what I said there. I certainly think for a young Indian today, they are the most fortunate generation in the history of independent India. And I say this absolutely without any doubt in my mind. I've been an entrepreneur. I can assure you that I can write a 10-volume book about the struggles. And the so-called struggles of today pale in comparison to what we went through, which is not a typical old man conversation with a young man, but I just wanted to lay it out there.
Or a young woman.
Yeah, a young woman, exactly. I just want to certainly make the point that the SEZ issues are a little different from the normal startup ecosystem. The SEZs were conceived with a very different framework in mind and are struggling to align to this new world of tech startups, working from home, hybrid work. All of that, the SEZs are not really designed for. So now you have a problem where there is a software tech company in an SEZ, but 50% of them want to work from home. And the entire SEZ framework is about these are the employees who will be working in the SEZ, and this is the kind of output you'll come from the SEZ. So the SEZ is not really the right example to showcase the difficulties of the startups, number one. Which is not to say that the SEZs don't require some reform. Piyush Goyal ji is certainly working on it. We have had a number of discussions on it, and I think over the next few months, certainly that will become clearer. But broadly in the startup ecosystem today, I can't, I mean, there'll always be some compliance and income tax filings and all of that. But look, I will say this with the absolute confidence in my command, that it is the easiest thing today to be a startup. 1 year ago, when the Honorable Prime Minister launched the semiconductor mission, and he gave us 76,000 crores to invest, he particularly made sure that there were 2,000 crores set aside for startups. There were no startups in India. Semiconductor design startups? Huh? What? Where? And we have today 28 semiconductor design startups doing cutting edge work, creating devices, AI compute, AI chips, sensing, IoT, all kinds of devices. And the government has bootstrapped many of them with capital. And these are all people, students from IITs and other colleges who basically just went to our website, applied to the government of India. The next thing they knew, 2 months later, or a month and a half later, they were getting on a dais like this, and a check was being given to them by the Minister of State or the DG of CDAC. So I certainly think that it is an absolutely great time, golden era for startup and entrepreneurship in India today. Are things 100% perfect? They are not. I don't make that claim. Will they ever be 100% perfect? I suspect no.
So if a BJP government were to be voted back to power, what are you promising them?
No, first of all, I don't think there's an if about it. I think one of the things that you must not underestimate is the intelligence and the highly developed sense of their own future that the Karnataka voter represents. They certainly know that the next 5 years, they don't want a DK Shivkumar and a Siddaramaiah plundering and messing around. So I see the future of Karnataka, future of Bengaluru as from 2014 it has evolved into IT, ITS to now internet startups, consumer tech startups. I think the next wave in Karnataka and Bengaluru will be electronics manufacturing, electronics design, semiconductor design, AI. And I think the entire span of opportunities in tech that the world is now experiencing and seeing, Bengaluru will see in the next 5 years.
So will we see greater focus on nurturing a manufacturing ecosystem? A lot of manufacturers prefer to go to Tamil Nadu, it's cheaper land.
Yeah, look, the manufacturing in India today, you've seen what Tim Cook said when he came in here and all the, apart from the opening of the store, the Apple and Samsung opportunity that is represented for India is a big, big opportunity. And the electronics manufacturing clusters have evolved into Tamil Nadu, one. Karnataka is the second cluster. Uttar Pradesh, Noida is the third cluster. And there is some activity happening in Andhra and Telangana, depending on the time of the day and the day of the month and the month of the year. Karnataka certainly has, and I will certainly make sure I put all the weight that I have, and I have quite a bit of it, to make sure Karnataka is certainly one of the principal poles for the electronics ecosystem, both in the design, ESD, and the manufacturing side in the coming years.
So more Foxconn-like investments in the state.
You know, we are at $75 billion of electronics manufacturing this year. Our target, the Prime Minister has given us a target of doing 300 billion by 25-26. And I just want to share with you and put this in context. In 2014, the total electronics production in India was about 1 lakh crores plus. And by 26, which is about 10 years on, in a decade, we would have reached 27 lakh crores. So 27x growth in a decade is the target. And I certainly want to see Karnataka and Bengaluru getting a big chunk of that, because there are so many benefits we are seeing. Women employment, for example, 70% of the electronics mobile phone sector employees are women. And they are young women who are getting skilled, and they are highly skilled during this whole process. So it is extremely transformational. There are a lot of jobs going to be created as a consequence. And I think there are downstream societal impacts of this that are sort of playing out as we see. And most of these, and I've visited all the factories that today exist in India, they're all from rural and semi-rural backgrounds. And what a sense of accomplishment, what a sense of empowerment when they are sitting on the assembly line and building the iPhone 14 and are now prepping for the iPhone 15 or the Samsung Galaxy, whatever the model is, and prepping for the next model. So I think it's got a huge multiplier effect on at many levels: economic, jobs, investment, confidence that the people have, the skills that are created as a consequence of these kind of high-tech manufacturing facilities.
We had psephologists. They were the first speakers in at the event today. And they predicted a very neck-to-neck fight between the BJP and the Congress. You have been camping here for a long time. You very actively engaged in planning Karnataka's campaign and executing it on ground. I want to get a sense from you on I want to get a number from you in terms of the seats that you're expecting to win.
Look, this neck-to-neck, Karnataka has always been a very competitive election field. And I've been associated in various categories, from coffee boy to vada server, from 1995 all the way to now. So I have seen many elections. So I think to characterize this as somehow uniquely different in 2023 from, let's say, 2018 or 2013 is wrong. There is always a tough fight between the Congress-JDS combo and the BJP. In terms of where we will end up, I certainly think, and I'm not giving you any complicated psephology or mathematical models and all of that other stuff that passes off as gyan, but I certainly think that there is this state is going to give a decisive mandate, and they want a stable government after seeing the circuses that Congress and JDS ran for some years in the state. So I think stability, the fact that you want 5 years of a stable government, progress, development, investment, jobs, is certainly on top of the mind of all voters in Karnataka. And I think they will go through this process of saying who's best suited to deliver that. And I'm reasonably confident that most voters, and therefore in most constituencies, they will press the button on the Kamal. And so if you ask me what is the number of seats, I'll say a minimum of 113 and a maximum of 224. That's what I'll tell you.
I want to ask you, are there any trade secrets that you can reveal here in terms of how you've used tech in this campaign to manage perceptions, to ensure people come out to vote?
I think this is again a myth that some people build, that there is some complex Merlin-like magician, wizardish thing that you need to do on social media. Effectively, it's the same thing that you do with real media, or we did for many, many years, which is really get out there. We know the platform. The platforms are all known, whether they're YouTube, whether they're Insta, whether they're Meta, whether they're whatever. And you go put out there interesting content, truthful content that tells the people who are on the other side of it what it is this party is about, who are their candidates, what they are planning to do. And that's it. I don't think there is any, after the Cambridge Analytica thing, all of these platforms are wised up to making sure that misuse comes with a lot of punitive consequences. So I think it's very difficult today for platforms to do any Merlin-type magic. This is fairly straightforward common sense. These are the platforms. These are the ways to communicate. The shorter the video, the better. The more interesting the video, the better. Video is obviously trumps over text and print, which I'm sure Moneycontrol knows.
Sure. Okay, my last question, and I'm hoping that you will give some good news to especially startup founders. It's on angel tax. It's a huge sore point with the startup community. We know that the finance ministry has been thinking, discussing, debating what to do with it. Is that something that you're taking up aggressively?
No, of course. This is not something I'm taking up. It is something that we have been taking up. And without getting into too much of granular details on this, there is some pushback in some areas of the revenue department, the income tax authorities, in terms of misuse and so on and so forth. But in principle, all of government is fairly clear in our mind, clear in the government's mind, with a clear mandate from our Prime Minister that we do not want any policy, any action of the government to create a road bump or a hurdle in terms of the growth trajectory of our startups. This is an article of faith for us. This is something you will see in all of the legislations that we will bring, all of the rules making that we will do, that we want it to be an enabling environment for our startups and our young Indians. On this particular issue, I understand there has been considerable debate, but I think if you give us some time, we will crack this problem reasonably soon.
Okay, thank you so much. We do hope that the next time we have you on our platform in Bengaluru, we don't have to quote this anecdote, which I'll quote right now, that one of the speakers had to travel for 85 minutes to reach here, and she was coming from Koramangala.
Yeah, I just came from Koramangala as well. So. No, look, again, let me tell you that Bengaluru is a city which is a sprawling city, and Koramangala is on the south and the east. So to come to the north, which is where you are, you have to cross the city. And if you cross the city at this time of the evening...
You live in Delhi. We can reach Manesar in that much time.
Yeah, but, Delhi doesn't have this type of layout of a city. We don't have to go through the city to get to the north or the east or south. You have something called the ring road.
The ring roads.
Yeah.
Okay, so to ring roads in Bangalore. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We wish...